Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sippin On Country. I am very, very excited this week that we have Charlie McCoy with us. Now, you may or may not know the name, but I guarantee that you have heard him play. So, Charlie, just tell us a little bit about you. And I say a little bit, we've got a lot of time to cover.
Well, I came here in 1959. I had met Mel Tillis, and I was a rock and roll guitar player and singer. And he heard me sing a Chuck Berry song, and I think he might have been drinking, and he said, "Boy, you go to Nashville, I'll get you on records." That was like showing a steak to a wolf. So the day after high school, came up here, went to the office. He gave me a card of an office, his publisher. I walked in, I said, "I'm Charlie McCoy, I'm from South Florida, and I came here to see Mel Tillis," and she said, "Mel's out of town." Oh, you know, back then days, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have motorways either. You know, anyway, but she said, "I'll let you speak to his manager." So I went in to speak to his manager and publisher. His name is Jim Denny. He's in the Country Music Hall of Fame, by the way. And he said, "Mel told me about you. You want some auditions?" And I said, yes. I auditioned for Chet Atkins and Owen Bradley. I didn't even know who they were. It's probably a good thing.
That's right.
I would have been, So they both turned me down because they said, "Well, you're pretty good, son, but we're not doing this kind of music around here." So, but then Owen Bradley invited me to watch a recording session, and I saw 13-year-old Brenda Lee record one of her first hits. And when I heard the first playback, I said, I don't want to be a singer. I want to do this. So I came back a year later, and a year after that, I got my first session with, of course, playing harmonica, with an unknown singer from Sweden named Anne Margaret.
Okay.
20-year-old Anne Margaret. And then at the end of that session, the bass player walked over me. He said, "You free Friday?" I was free the rest of my life. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Come back here, I'm recording Roy Orbison." Whoa, I was already a huge fan. You know, the records, Only the Lonely, Blue Angel, you know, wow. I didn't realize he recorded here.
Right.
At RCA Studio, you know. So we did a record called Candyman. It was a pretty big hit.
Yep. And so that was literally,
yes.
What, your second, third session?
My second session.
Your second session.
The record hit the radio and my phone started ringing.
Unbelievable.
63 years this month. It's still ringing. It's been amazing. I just, I've been so blessed. I got to, when you do what you love, it's not like work.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then later, I had already said, "No, I don't want to be an artist. I just want to do this." Mm-hmm. Well, next thing you know, I'm an artist again. And so, anyway, it's my career's like a fairy tale.
I mean, it really seems so. I mean, I want to delve into all the stuff you've done. I don't even know if we have enough time to delve into all the stuff you've done. But, I mean, just from the get-go, I mean, you really hit the ground running. And, I mean, now you are a Nashville staple. You know, If I go to a show and Charlie McCoy doesn't pop up on stage at one time, am I in Nashville?
Well, I was accepted by the Nashville A-Team, who were doing all the recording here then. At that time, there were only two studios, the Quonset Hut and RCA. They were going back and forth. And they accepted me as a 20-year-old. What an education for me.
I bet.
Because in those days, when you're in the studio, when you're playing a song, you're making the record. There was no overdubs, no fixing. None of that. What you hear is what you get. The musicians, the artist, the background singers, and the engineer
Right. And
had to be right.
was it normally just one take all the way through?
Many times it was one take. That's how good those guys
Right.
were. Yeah. But, sometimes it was more than that. But I was so impressed by it seemed like the ease that they did everything with. And, nobody gets in anybody's way. If somebody says, what if I played this? And the leader said, I don't think so. Nobody got offended, It was such a great team to work in, and I was so thrilled.
So you come in, second session, Roy Orbison. I mean, from there, I know you've worked with everyone, but I mean, what kind of came after Roy Orbison? Where were you at after that? And that point you were playing harmonica.
Yes, and as time passed, I became known as a utility man because they found out I play a bunch of other things: guitar, bass. I learned vibraphone, keyboard, and even a little trumpet, sax.
So there's nothing you can't do, really.
Well, I don't play fiddle.
Oh, well, in that case,
Steel guitar, or 5-string banjo. I like to sleep at nights.
just a little bit,
Yeah,
bit.
right.
I mean, you went on. You recorded on some of the tracks for Elvis's movie.
Yes,
Some of the movie songs.
I played. Actually, by the time it was all said and done, I appeared on 13 albums with Elvis.
Wow.
And I must say, he was such a nice guy. And in that day and time, he really couldn't. He was so popular. He couldn't even hardly go out on the street.
Right.
But the studio was his safe place.
And was this all at RCA?
Yes.
Is this okay?
With people he respected and doing what he loved to do, He was very relaxed, and you could tell that. And it was great. And, 3 of the movie tracks, we went to Los Angeles to do those.
Okay.
But the rest of them were done here at RCA. And in 1970, they had what they called the marathon sessions, which turned out about total songs. It was just him there doing the songs he wanted to do.
Okay.
And it ended up being about 4 albums worth.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. I mean, one morning I got out just in time to go to breakfast and go to my morning session.
Damn.
Because, he would sleep all day and then come in raring to go.
And at that point, you guys had already been in the studio already. It's like, let's go.
Yeah, but we were young then. We could do it.
That's it. No Red Bull, though.
No.
No
No.
Red Bull back then.
No.
I mean, Elvis strikes me, was he very much a perfectionist in the studio? He seems like he'd be the kind of guy that would come in and be like...
Yes, but in the beginning, what I did was movie soundtracks. Mm-hmm. And the first movie was called Harem Scarum. And I got the notion that he wasn't too happy with the songs. Okay. And I don't blame him because I didn't think they were very good either. And but once he said to all of us, "Hey guys, I know these songs aren't that great, but let's do them as good as we can." Okay. So I appreciated that.
Right.
Always and you know what? We'll never see another star ever of that magnitude in the world.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
No.
I was just talking to someone, just all of those greats that sometimes when I look at people around today, I struggle to see anyone who I feel like, and maybe it's the way that the industry has changed now as well, but I don't see us getting those like global superstars.
Well, I think, in my mind, there's 3 things that were the downfall. Number 1 was the deregulation of radio.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't know what I mean by that, but years ago, there was a law in this country that one person or one corporation could not own more than 7 broadcast units. But then our government deregulated that, and now you have chains with 80 stations in it.
Yeah.
You got one guy programming 80 stations, and it changed it. It made it really tough for independent artists to get a break, you know.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, music videos. Okay, if an artist looks good on camera, oh, well, we can make them sound good, you know.
Yep.
And then, of course, the internet is the final blow. Mm-hmm. And I think young people today, all they want to do is listen to one song on their phone.
Yep.
You know,
not even one song, 20, 30 seconds of the song.
And, you know, and of course, nowadays, making CDs has become an expensive hobby.
Yes. Yep. Man, and even just, and I speak about this a lot as well, but with social media since COVID, you know, social media has changed the game again. And I think I do see positive elements in it. I think that it's another platform to get music to people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to connect with.
True.
But also, you know, there's now a very diluted pool of just everything. Yeah, it's wild.
It's totally different. And, you know, the one artist that's figured it out is Taylor Swift.
Yeah. And you know what? She is mentioned on probably 75% of these podcasts. But it's true. You know, she really has. And she is, whether you like Taylor Swift or you don't, whether you're a super fan or not, I mean, she has nailed it. She's found the formula that works for the way the industry is right now. And she's capitalizing on it, and good for her.
And she's a good writer.
Yep.
And, you know, people may not be aware of this, but our NFL football stadium, she sold it out 3 nights in a row. And two of my granddaughters went to the show, and they said, she sang 45 songs.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. If I'd have sang 45 songs in one night, I couldn't talk for a week.
She is certainly paving the way. Taylor Swift has really, really figured out the industry. And it's amazing, actually, to see her grow and see how she is navigating it. I did not think I'd end up on a Taylor Swift conversation with you, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But
well, you know, I mean, it is what it is. And I must say, she's been very generous. She made a huge contribution when we had our flood in 2010. Mm-hmm. She made another one to the Country Music Hall of Fame. They now have the Taylor Swift Education Center there. And I heard that the bonuses to her entire crew after this last tour were huge.
Yeah.
And that is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, good for her.
She does a lot of stuff that a lot of artists could do, but they don't, you know, and
yes.
And I think that occasionally, you know, I've seen things where people have criticised that because they're like, oh, well, it's a publicity stunt. But I'm like, publicity stunt or not, everyone else can do it. They're just not doing it.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
No, I think she is one of the few now that, you know, I think she will go down in history without a doubt.
I agree.
And she's done incredible for herself.
Yeah.
So rewind all the way back. So you've recorded on these Elvis records, and then at some point you end up in New York working with Bob Dylan.
I'm sorry?
You end up in New York working with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, well, I went to New York 1964 to go to the World's Fair.
Okay.
And this guy I had met, who was a songwriter from Texas, he wrote for the Elvis Presley Music Group. So he said, listen, I want to come to Nashville and make demos. Will you be session leader? And I said, sure. So he came and made some demos. His name was Bob Johnston.
Okay.
So he did get about 3 songs in Elvis movies. But the ones that didn't, he took them to other places to show them to different people. Uh-huh. And he was in New York, and he showed the head of Columbia Records. demos. He said, "These demos are great. Where'd you record them?" And he said, "Nashville." And he asked him this question: "Did you produce these?" And he said, "Yes." "You think you might want to be a record producer?" "Yes." "Well, we have an artist that's on the last project of her contract, and if nothing happens, we're going to drop her. Would you like to try a song with her?" And he said, "Sure, who is it?" "Patti Page." So, give him this credit. He went to his contacts from the Elvis Presley group in Los Angeles, found a movie that was coming out that needed a theme song recorded.
Okay.
So, later that year, he calls me and he said, "Get the band together. I'm bringing Patti Page to Nashville." And we couldn't believe it. They did a song called "Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte." It was the theme of a movie. Mm-hmm. It was a hit for her. And now they said, "Oh, wow, how would you like to produce Bob Dylan?"
Just like that.
And he said, "Yes."
Right.
So he told me, "I'm going to go and stay in New York for a while. If you ever come up, you want Broadway tickets, call me." I said, "Okay." So I went to New York late in '64. I called him. I said, "Hey, I'm here. How about my Broadway tickets?" He said, "Yeah, no problem. Hey, listen, I'm recording Bob Dylan today. Would you come over to the studio? I want you to meet him." I said, "Okay." So I go over and I walk in, and he introduced me to Dylan. And the first thing Dylan said to me was, "We're going to do a song. Why don't you get that extra guitar and play along with us?" So we did a song called "Desolation Row." It was 11 minutes long.
Of course
Just
it was.
him and me and a bass player.
Wow.
And I had all the lead stuff on the guitar. So 2 takes, and that was it. So I thought, well, that was weird. Next year, '65, about February, I get a call from him. "Call the band. I'm bringing Dylan to Nashville."
Man.
We did "Blonde on Blonde," his biggest album ever.
That is it. And you were session leader.
Yes.
For that.
And then after that, we did John Wesley Harding, Nashville Skyline, and then after that, we did an album called Self Portrait. The great thing about him coming here was that after he did, this place, the folk rock artist came here like it was unbelievable.
I guess before that point, Nashville was it was country music. Like
if you weren't
country,
that's what they thought.
Right.
Although 4 of the top pop artists in America were doing all their hits here: Elvis, Everly's, Orbison, and Brenda Lee.
Right.
But it was still thought of as country music.
Mm-hmm.
But after he came with "Blonde on Blonde," boy, I mean, Peter, Paul, Mary, the Byrds, Leonard Cohen, Gordon Lightfoot, John Fogelberg. I mean, the list went on and on and on of those. So now there were a need for more studios, and more musicians would get to work because the A-team was still full of what they always did, you know.
Okay.
And so it was a great growth, an explosion for Nashville recording here.
That's amazing. I mean, and what an iconic album as well. And to have kickstarted and kind of got the ball rolling on just bringing more people to Nashville, and ultimately the growth of Nashville into, you know, what it is now for recording studios and
yes,
and just music industry as a whole. So you are predominantly known for playing harmonica,
yes.
But like you say, you play a little bit of everything. So
well, a couple different things I did. I played trumpet on "Everybody Must Get Stoned."
Okay.
Baritone saxophone on "Pretty Woman."
There you go. See, I told you guys. Even if you don't know the name, we have all heard Charlie play. Amazing.
I played organ on "Easy Lovin' with Freddie Hart." Only Dad That Walked the Line, Waylon Jennings. I played bass on Mohair Sam with Charlie Rich.
Awesome.
And, of course, on the last three Dylan albums here, I played bass on.
Okay.
And then with Leonard Cohen, played bass. Vibraphone on Bobby Vinton record, Blue Velvet.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
And so, yeah, I've become known as a utility man, and I even had to get a car that I could carry my vibraphone around in.
So you know you're a true musician when you're buying a car for your instruments.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's been great. I love it, but without the harmonica, I don't get in the door.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
And if someone says Charlie McCoy to me, that is my go-to.
Of course.
Is harmonica.
And it should be. See, I started playing when I was 8 years old. I got one out of a comic book with 50 cents and a box top.
Oh man.
It was 1949. You could buy stuff for 50 cents in 1949.
I can't even get anything for 50 cents at Walmart.
And after about a day, my mother said, "Could you take it outside?" It's an 8-year-old with a harmonica's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But and I learned then that dogs and cats didn't like it. And after I learned to play, they still didn't like it. But in the middle 50s, when I was a teen, and I was living in Florida by then. I'm originally from West Virginia.
Okay.
I was living in Florida, Miami actually. And late at night, I heard this radio station that was playing Delta Blues. Jimmy Reed, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter, Slim Harpo, all these harmonica players. And I said, that's a harmonica. I got one of those. I got to learn to do that. And then I got really crazy about that radio station. And my dad didn't like it because it was late. I should be asleep, I'm in school,
Right.
And a friend of mine's father put an earphone jack in my radio, so
You could just put your headphones on. No one knows.
That radio station came from all places you wouldn't believe. Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
There's a station on the right side of the dial, WLAC. 1510, and if the weather was right, the signal would come into Florida.
Wow.
And I'd heard those harmonicas, and so then that was it, because that was important, because it put me back to the harmonica.
Right.
And really trying to learn it.
So you were obviously, music was a big thing for you at a very young age. I mean,
yes.
In your family, were your parents musical? Did you have any sort of roots in it? Or was this...
I had an uncle who could play guitar.
Okay.
And another uncle who could play piano. My dad never played anything, but he would sing along with records, and he had a nice voice, My mom she didn't get any of it. But really, there wasn't that much. And then when I started harmonica, we were still living in West Virginia, and there wasn't a soul around who played it.
Right.
Nobody there to show me anything.
I mean, even now, I feel like it's rare to people who tend to play harmonica play it to accompany themselves, maybe when they're playing guitar as an addition.
Yeah,
but
right.
to find people who are really well versed and have harmonica as their prime instrument, I mean, now it's still very rare.
I know it is. It's one of those instruments, that there's many people who like to play, but here I found out right away, when you're playing behind a singer, get in between the lyrics. Mm-hmm. That's very important. I guess the best example I ever did of that was a record by George Jones called "He Stopped Loving Her Today." Mm-hmm. I played 4 little tiny pieces here. And so, but I learned this from the Nashville A-Team, those guys. Right. And they told me, they said, here's the way we think about all this. The singer and the song are the picture. We are the frame.
I love
Period.
That. I love that.
Yes, I do too. And it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And young harmonica players said, what advice would you give me? And I said, listen to a song. A song is more than just chord changes, you know, and a great melody. There's lyrics there too, you know. Listen to those lyrics and don't interfere with them, especially with female singers, because you're right in their same range, you know, and it's like, yeah. So that's my watchword is less is more.
100%. And I think that's not always. It's not always necessarily an easy thing to do, because you take some people, you know, that are very proficient at their instrument, and all they want to do is show off, which is great. And, you know, I'm sure you could play and sound amazing, but you have to find that fine line between adding to a song or doing too much, and it actually just takes away and it ruins it.
I've seen it happen many times. The young people come in and they get a chance to do a session, and they want to show everybody in the room how much they know. Hey, nobody here cares how much you know. The only thing we care about is what can you do for this song now. That's what's important.
Yeah.
You know.
And if you go in too gung-ho, then you blow your chances on that first.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I've seen it happen many times.
And so over the years, I know we spoke about Elvis and the Dylan thing, but you have played on so many tracks, including you played on The Boxer.
Yes.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Bass harmonica.
Okay.
And I'd like to take credit for what I played, but Paul Simon dictated every note to me. And he was right.
Fair.
He was right.
That's fair.
Yeah. When you look at their and his body of work, it's incredible. So many different styles and all hits, you know. It's amazing. Really is.
They had a fantastic formula that, you know, and I think that goes back to what we were saying about initially, just I guess with the way the industry has changed.
Yes.
But that a lot of these older artists, that there was something more in that music that I feel like we miss out on today. And I don't even know if I can necessarily pinpoint what it is, but the way it has changed, people go into recording differently. You know, I mean, even, you know, you go from recording on tape to recording digitally. Yes. And all of a sudden you've gone from, well, you know, tape's expensive to record to, we have to go in and get this right. You know, we have to hit the nail on the head every time.
I've seen now with the technology, you know, it's got good side and it's got a not so good side. I've seen young, especially guitar players, they play it over and over and over and over again, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, that was pretty doggone good the first time. What are you doing? You know what? But musicians, a lot of time, we get guilty of playing for each other.
Right.
And not worried about the people out there, because the people out there don't care.
Agree.
Wouldn't you love it if you're playing a concert and in the middle somebody comes up and say, your third string was out of tune on the seventh song.
Right.
You know, it's like.
And I had a friend that was playing with an artist. There's a big country music festival in the UK called Country to Country. And a few years ago now, my friend was playing with an artist and they got off stage and he texted me and he was like, oh man, like we messed this up. And I was like, nope, absolutely not. I was like, sitting in the audience. Yeah. I'm like, I know what I'm listening for and I didn't hear it, because no one is sitting there and listening for someone to mess up.
Of course not.
So if there is even the tiniest nuance where it slips, no one's going to pick it up. And you know, as a musician, like, you're always more critical of what you play than, you know, most audiences, they just want to enjoy the music. They want to enjoy a record.
Exactly. Well, you know, years ago I did a live album in the Czech Republic.
Oh, okay.
With a Czech band. And this fiddle player was from Slovakia. And I'm like, he was so good. Oh my gosh. So we're recording the thing live on stage. Afterwards, we come. He's up in the dressing room and he's sitting there. And I said, Stanor, great job. No, I make mistake. I said, listen, you just played 500 amazing notes. Forget about the 3 you might have missed. No, I must do better. I said, hey, the pursuit of perfection is a wonderful thing, but we rarely ever get there. There was only one guy in the world that was perfect, and he died on a cross. And I said, but he came back. I said, if you put yourself on a cross, you ain't coming back.
Nope.
No, it's true.
I think for me personally, sometimes those imperfections make a song. So actually, Miranda Lambert, Tin Man, they recorded that one take. If you listen to the guitar in that, there's a ton of mistakes, if that's what you want to call them, right?
Hey.
But for me, I'm like, it makes the song, because that song is already so raw with her vocals, and then you've got this one take all the way through guitar that, sure, every now and then you hear like the strings slide but it's perfection. It's the imperfect
Yes.
makes it perfect.
Hey, when you're doing a show, the bottom line at the end of the show is, did the people enjoy it?
Yeah.
If they did, you accomplished what you came to do.
Yeah, agree.
And that's the only thing I think about at the end of a show. Hey, I'm not perfect. I'll miss something here and there, but if they walk away happy, then me too.
And I think that's the best way to look at it. And it is hard sometimes, because a lot of people want that perfection, but then it's not sustainable. You know, you stay in the business for that long, you burn yourself out from trying to reach a point that, you know, the best person in the world is probably never going to reach. Yep. You know, you're never going to be perfect 100% of the time. But you're right, it's about the audience. Yeah,
one of the things for me that I think about is that I don't know how a person can be playing in a band on a Broadway show that runs 2 years, and they're playing the exact same thing every night. Ooh.
All right, note to self, never ask Charlie to do Broadway.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, another of the great things that happened to me was that there was a TV show here called Hee Haw.
Yes.
And in season 7, I was called in to just play on a spot with Ray Charles, play harmonica.
As you do.
And after the show was over, the producer, his name was Sam Lavello, he came to me and he said, would you consider joining up and being in the band? And I said, Sam, I'm awful busy these days. I'm working sessions around the clock and all that. And he says, well, why don't you try it once? The band's not here but about 8 days a month. And we only do it 1 month. We do it June and we do it October. 13 shows each month. And the band didn't hear that often, you know. So I thought, well, it was so much fun. Gee, you talking about you walk in surrounded by legends, you know. Right. Buck Owens, Roy Clark, Grandpa Jones, Roy Acuff, Minnie Pearl. I mean, it was amazing. And everybody was so nice. And I had the feeling that this team that was doing this show, they were all so proud of this and so committed to it, you know. And I like that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
So I decided to give it a try. And I tried it another month. Well, the third time I gave it a try, at the end of that month, he said, we'd like you to consider being band leader. Okay. There wasn't a lot to that because these were all studio musicians, you know. They were very good.
Yeah, I mean, you have a tight-knit band.
Right.
You know, it makes your job a lot easier.
At the end of that season, he called me in and he said, our music director's leaving the show. He's going to marry Tammy Wynette. We want you to be music director. Really? So I said, okay. I said, I'll try this. 13 years later, the show went off the air. And I was still there. And it was so much fun. It really was.
Wow. See, for me, obviously did not grow up with Hee Haw. my all of my my introduction to it is from being at the Country Music Hall of Fame and seeing the stuff in there. But I've definitely like watched some of the show, and it seems like the sort of thing that I feel like you guys must have just, it wasn't work, right? That doesn't seem like it ever would have been a day of work working
I know.
with that.
Well, and our cornfield is up there in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
It is.
So after that, the artist thing was, it was, I didn't see it coming. I was working a session with Roy Orbison's producer in '63. He said, "Hey, come out to my office. I want to talk to you." So I went out to his office. It was out in the suburb of Hendersonville then. And he said, "I want you to make some records." And I said, "Doing what?" He said, "Listen to this." He said, "I don't care. Just go in the studio and be creative."
What?
Well, at the time, I had a band. We had a band in the early '60s, and we played for fun on the weekends. And we played mainly R&B.
Okay.
We were the only band in Tennessee that played Motown.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so I recorded some of that. And 2 albums we made, couldn't give them away. 8 years passed. Every year I'd go in, "Hey, it's not working." He said, "Keep looking, you'll find it." His name was Fred Foster. He discovered Dolly, Boots Randolph, the Gatlin Brothers,
Wow.
Jeannie Seeley. I mean,
that's a pretty good track record, I would say.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so I made 14 albums for Monument.
Wow.
And first one, the first one, it was album number 3, because they made a distribution deal with Columbia Records, and they cut everything out that wasn't selling. So my first 2 albums were...
They're just gone. Right, okay.
So then we had there was one song on that second album. So the second album was half pop R&B and the other half country.
Okay.
All instrumental. And this disc jockey from Florida started calling, "You guys have got a hit if you'll put it out." "What?" "This harmonica player, that Merle Haggard song, 'Today I Started Loving You Again.'" So finally, Columbia Records sent a promotion man down there. And he said, this guy at the radio station said, "Watch my phones when I play this record." And they lit up like that.
Wow.
And they said, "I think you got something." So they put the record out. It starts up the charts. And they said, "Hey, we're going to need an album." So I told Fred Foster, I said, "We've already got half of one,
Right, yep.
All we got to do is go in and record 5 or 6 more songs." So we did that. Album came out. The real McCoy won a Grammy.
That's wild.
2 albums later, the album called Good Time Charlie went number 1.
So, I mean, you spent all those years playing for other people and doing all this session work. I mean, that must have been like just the most incredible accolade to then finally put out your own record and for that to then win a Grammy. I mean, that is just the pinnacle of like...
Well, for me, it was a lot of fun because all the 14 albums I did, no one from the record label ever came to the studio when we were recording. And I used so many different musicians. All these people I would work with all the time, and just mix them up. And it was fun. It was so much fun. And so, yeah, I was loving that. I was loving the creative part of it.
Right.
Thinking of what song to do, how am I going to do it. And, the great Boots Randolph, who was a sax player, had some records with Monument. The main one was called Yakety Sax. He told me once, he said, "You know something? The greatest solo you can play sometimes is the melody. So I started making sure I had melodies right.
Right.
And when I would record a song, if I didn't know the words, I had a lyric sheet because I'm playing the words.
Right. Yeah.
And I want the phrasing to be like if someone was sitting there listening, and in their subconscious are singing along with you.
Yep.
So anyway, so now 47 albums later.
Wow.
And 3 EPs and an instructional DVD and an autobiography. Yeah, we have a website.
Amazing. I'm gonna make sure that I link to everything. So if anyone wants to go check those out,
and the website's still up, y'all. If you want to,
there we go.
We have lots of music for sale.
So it seems.
Yeah.
And buy it, guys. Buy, do not stream. Or I mean, you can stream, but also buy. We'll do it all. We'll do it all.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've played with Johnny Cash.
Yep.
And
that was
there's probably not a name I can say that you haven't.
Most of the early artists, yes, I did play for. A couple I never got to, and that I wished I had was Gene Watson, Martina McBride. Oh, and one day we were at the Country Music Hall of Fame, at an induction ceremony, and I was in a conversation with Alison Krauss and Emmylou Harris, and I said I couldn't help myself. I said, I've never worked for you two. I still haven't.
Well, we can get Martina on board, right? We'll have her do a new album. She's overdue for something anyway, so we'll get Martina.
And her husband built that big studio in Berry Hill, Blackbird. And I saw an interview, and they said, "Well, this is quite an adventure." And he said, "Yeah," he said, "I'm just a roadie with a budget."
I love that. So the studio that we're in now, the guys who designed and built this also did Blackbird. For anyone listening on audio, we do have this up on YouTube as well, but this is a phenomenal space.
Yeah.
Where was I going? But now I've lost my train of thought. Where are we at?
Oh, and I mean,
we'll cut it.
So I've been so blessed. I have Country Music Hall of Fame, International Musicians Hall of Fame,
and you're also a member of the Opry.
West Virginia Music Hall of Fame, and a couple of years ago, I was made a member of the Opry. It's the icing on the cake.
Right.
I played it 39 times last year.
Wow. See, for you to only be inducted a couple of years ago, that feels like they waited much too long. It feels like you should have been an Opry member a long time ago.
I must say, though, through the 90s and the early 2000s, most of my touring was in Europe.
Okay.
I played over 200 towns in Europe.
Wow.
Mainly France and Denmark.
Okay, I love Scandinavia is great. Scandinavia is great, especially for your vein of music as well. Yeah, they love all that stuff. Love it.
And I learned to speak Danish with a 4-year-old.
Nice.
And French with a 6-year-old.
Hey, if it works.
Yeah, and I have been to Japan 19 times.
Oh wow! And has all of this ultimately come, like Japan? All of this has come from the music.
Yes.
From being able to get out and play and.
Yeah, and I'm no longer young, but I still feel good, and I'm still excited about music.
I love that, and so. You say about going out to all these places in Europe, Japan. I mean, there's a huge language barrier there, and it's one thing that I don't think I will ever not love about music is that you don't speak the same language. You could go to some tiny little town where people literally don't speak a word of English, but you start playing music, and you know what? For however long you're on stage, the connection is there. It doesn't matter about anything else that's going on in the world.
Exactly right. And American music is still the most popular music around the world. Mm-hmm. It really is.
UK number 2.
Yeah, yeah, and no, it's incredible. If
It really is.
You know, and I have so many friends over there in France, Denmark, Czech Republic. I have so many friends, and it's great. If you look at my Facebook page, from time to time, you'll see 9 different languages.
Wow, that's
of friends
crazy.
of mine.
Do you prefer, or I guess, do you have a preference from playing shows in the US to playing shows in Europe and abroad? Do you find there is a big difference with your audience?
Not really. Or? I mean, people are people, and if you make them happy,
right?
Unfortunately, I'm got a little physical condition, so I probably won't be going overseas anymore. But boy, I've been there, I've done that, and loved it.
And that actually, where we were saying about social media, you talk about Facebook, is of all the pros and cons, that's one of the things that is fantastic. That even if you are not in a position where you're able to travel,
yes,
you can still keep in contact with all
exactly.
those people. You can, Facebook Lives, TikTok, like you can put your music out there and still be able to connect with people on that personal basis that, 20 years ago, you just couldn't do it in the same way.
No, you're right about that, and that's I love that.
Yeah.
Especially with family, you can, we got a niece that lives down in Franklin, and she's got 3 the cutest little kids, and we can just, sit there and watch those kids grow up. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a whole other world with it. So there are definitely pros and cons, but that is one of the biggest positives. So I'm going to bring up the fact that while you guys can't see this on the video right now, sitting on this table is all of your harmonicas, and I feel like it would be rude if we just let them sit there.
Well, this has been so very good to me.
So how many have we got in here?
36.
36.
36. There's, musically speaking, there's 12 keys and 3 different tunings. But you see, they're all the same brand. I've been an endorsee with this company for about 40 years.
Okay.
And 10 years ago, they moved their United States headquarters to Mount Juliet.
Well, that sounds perfect.
It's great, because if I need something, I just call them.
You just roll up there, guys.
Right. But anyway, so I started my first harmonica. I learned to play. Something like that.
Yeah.
And then
probably about as much as I could do. A lot worse than that, though.
Yeah. And then the Anne Margaret record. Well, you call me your baby when you're holding my hand. I just don't understand. And then Roy Orbison, Candyman. There was that.
Love it.
And then, of course, there was a song that in the UK was the theme of a major television show. I didn't even realize it at first. See, in the 70s, we had this, we were trying to do some Southern rock, a bunch of us guys, for fun. We had a band called Area Code 615.
I love it.
And we recorded this song, and it was just me and a drummer, the great Kenny Buttry. And next thing I know, the publisher calls us and says, somebody in England wants to use this song on a TV show.
Anyone in the UK listening, this is actually roundabout, because this guy now is very prominent in the country scene in the UK.
Yes.
So
the Old Grey Whistle Test, it was called. And I thought, the Old Grey Whistle Test? What is that? Anyway, it was a talent show. And So the theme song. Anyway, something like that.
That was it. Hosted by Bob Harris, nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, and
yeah, I mean that's a staple in the UK. You know, I think anyone listening right now in the UK will recognise that from the get-go, even if for some unknown reason they've been living under a rock and haven't heard of the old grey whistle test.
And another thing that was, some of these things came to me because of something an artist wanted,
right?
And I had to figure out a way, So, 1965, I get called to Johnny Cash session. He did a vocal version of the Orange Blossom Special. Okay. I never knew there were words to it.
Yep. Okay.
The words. Look yonder coming down the railroad line, Mm-hmm. So then he said to me, why don't you play the solo? I thought, this is a fiddle song. What am I going to do? So I was sitting around and hey. So I did this. Sounds more like a train, but kind of fiddle-ish. So I did that, and of course he did the song was much slower than you usually hear it done by fiddle players. And afterwards he walked over and said, show me how to do that. So I showed him. I said, tell you what, John, you take these two harmonicas, you can have them. So later, I thought afterwards, I'm going to learn that song. And now when I come to the Opry, they said, if you're not going to play Orange Blossom, don't come. So a little bit of it goes like... Anyway, so it's become
amazing.
My main song on concerts, always the last one.
I don't think I've ever seen you play and not heard you do that.
No,
so
right. But
sense.
Hey, and I love it. I like to play it, and
that harmonica is iconic.
And the longer I played it, the faster I was able to play it. Practice helps.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway. This is my story. It's been such a blessing to me. I can't even imagine how I've been so lucky and how so blessed.
You know what, though? Luck does not just materialize. I mean, your talent, the drive, like you have made a lot of this luck.
Oh well, listen. I'm all over it, and I'm excited about it still.
I love that. So how many years have you been like from your first?
The first session was, I'll never forget it, May 9th, 1961.
Wow.
Anne Margaret.
So what's that? 63 years.
Yeah.
Almost to the day.
63 years now.
Wow.
And I'm still going.
See, I think for anyone to find something that you can do for that long and still get the same excitement and the same joy, like I think that's incredible. And if I can find something that I can still be that passionate about, like unbelievable. I feel like it's
just a gift. It's the talent is a gift. What you do with it's up to you.
Right.
And plus, I didn't mention that I've got an awful lot of music education. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me, you're too educated to play country music. But it's helped. It has helped, yeah. And and when I listen, of course, musicians, especially studio musicians, we listen to music different than other people do.
Yeah.
We're always listening to arrangement, what somebody played. We can't help it. We can't help it. That's what we do.
Right. You're never just going to listen to a song and be like, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good, but there was like this little bit, and then there was that little bit where maybe if they're just...
Yeah.
Blessing and a curse, right?
But, like I said, the musicians here are so good.
This city is, I've not lived in New York, I've not lived in LA, but I feel like I can still say, especially from everyone I've spoken to, that Nashville is its own thing. There's nowhere in the world like it.
No.
And yeah, the musicians are incredible. It's you go into a session and it's phenomenal.
The place in LA, they had the Wrecking Crew.
Yes, Glenn Campbell.
They're fantastic. But everything they put, every session is all written arrangements.
Right.
And here, we used to joke here. Today your assignment is you're going to play 3 or 4 songs you've never heard before and make the record.
And that's it.
You got 3 hours.
I love that though, because ultimately, if you're bringing people into the studio who are, the top of their craft, why stifle that creativity when you could, your instrument, play it?
Oh, well, they're having all the sessions are. There's been a few that have been pretty weird. But, I had one guy. We were doing commercials once, and one guy comes up to me and he says, "Could you play something that sounds yellow?"
Yeah.
And I said, and I'm thinking, of course, we always take the thing, you say yes and figure it out,
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, what does yellow sound like? So I decided to play some Cowboy Campfire with a heavy, that kind of thing.
I see how that would work.
I didn't have a clue.
Does this sound yellow enough for you?
Anyway, he came out and he said, "That's it." I couldn't believe it.
Now you know. Now you know what. If anyone ever asks you again.
Well, I know what one person thinks is yellow.
That's so funny.
Oh.
Yeah, I imagine there could be some strange requests.
Yeah.
But what an incredible journey you've had, and to also see, I know we've spoken a little bit, to see the change in the industry and the way.
Yes.
Do you feel like you've adapted the way that you promote yourself? Obviously, you've got a lot of contacts in the industry now that you don't really have to, but have you utilized a lot of the new things that have come along?
I don't know. We have our website and it's all set up to where people, they use credit cards and it works really well.
You've got your Facebook page.
Facebook, yeah, and
not jumped on TikTok yet?
No.
Is there going to be a Charlie McCoy TikTok in the future?
I don't know. I hear there's some controversy about TikTok.
There's controversy about everything.
Well, you're right about that. You're so right about that. Yeah, but anyway, so. Before I go, I'm going to give you one number that's going to blow your mind.
All right.
Okay.
I feel like I'm already there, so let's go.
Right. So I have made 47 albums, 3 EPs, and an instructional DVD. By the way, which I made in Ireland.
Okay.
And there's a band that's playing on some of it, and 3 of the guys were members of the original Riverdance.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so cool. But anyway, I have used, counting musicians, singers, engineers, arrangers, 556 people.
Wow.
I have the list.
You have a whole list of every... That's...
The list is right over there in that sack. And my next album is a bluegrass album. And that number's going up. Because I have commitments for duets from Rhonda Vincent.
Of course
Kathy
you do.
Mattea, Jeannie Seeley, Alicia Nugent, and so, and plus we're going to record the tracks for those people with an all-female bluegrass band, and there's so many great players now in bluegrass. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I like to do that. I like to bring in people that I've never used, that I've never worked together with, and I
love that.
Yeah, it's cool.
I feel like that helps the creative process as well, because you work with the same people day in, day out, and you get complacent, and you go, oh, well, I know that this person likes this thing, so then you just end up kind of plodding along. Yeah. Whereas you change it up, and all of a sudden you're bringing new ideas in, and I feel like it helps you to grow. I feel like you should never hit a ceiling. If you've hit a ceiling, then you're probably doing something wrong. That's my mind. So anyway, that's my next thing. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. There we go. Like I said, I'm going to link to all of your stuff in the show notes for this, so you guys can go over and check. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see in the description. Please go out and support all the artists that I have on the podcast. So please, buy the records as well as streaming. Go out to shows if you can, because it really makes all the difference. Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, and this is a great kind of format, and you all support these kind of things, because this is what gets the true word out. Right. It's what I'm trying to do. We're trying here. But guys, we're going to be back next week with another episode of Sippin On Country. Until then, thank you so much. Charlie McCoy, everyone. Thank y'all. Recorded at 2300 Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Original theme music by Gary Wood.